video is now continuing from the previous video labeled IS 1, 16, 36, 40 and even 38. That video that covered those standards. This is a continuation on now solving the statement of changes in inequity, the SOSE. So we're just continuing from that video, but now doing this statement. It's a separate statement as well. So it's just got a very simple format though, the statement of changes in equity. What you just need to know is that you would have some details here on the vertical column, share capital. So I'll just you just bear with me, just due to maximize the space here. I'll just try and abbreviate some things. This is supposed to be your retained earnings. After that, we should have revaluation reserve, and general reserve, GR. Then in the final column, total. That's your format. Then at the side here, you should start with your balance as at what? Your balance as at the opening date of the period. Yeah, that's what you're going to show. This balance as at that, as at the 31st. Most of these are the balances in the trial balance that you're picking from. Balance as at, is it the 31st? That's the period you look at from your question. So like in our previous question, the closing year was balance of the 31st December. That's 2 over 2015. That's how it should have been here. Then you now start putting in the share capital balance, the retained earnings balance, the revaluation reserve balance, and the general reserve balance. That's what you start with. Like from the trial balance, you pick them up. That's the first thing you even record. Then now there's 10 things now that are adjusted in those particular headings. Okay, e.g. dividends. Dividends should be part of the statement of changes in equity. After dividends, you can also look at things like impairment. Impairment it's another key component of your your statement of changes in equity. Revaluation surplus is also a component here. So that's another thing you can look at here. Then transfers to general reserve. So you know a transfer should affect general, just as the name has stated, that transfer to general reserve should come here. That's why it should be placed. A revaluation surplus takes it to revaluation reserve, just by the name. Impairment affects retained earnings. Dividends affect what? Retained earnings as well. That's how you treat these in the statement of changes in equity. So basically, these are the main things that you would bring into this statement of changes in equity. Yeah, and we want to try out the same question. As I said, it's a continuation. This one was just a brief overview on how the statement of changes in equity requires of you to input here at this point in the format here. Then of course, after you're done, there will be even totals at the end of the day from each column. Each column will have its total. The columns I'm referring to are these, like share capital column, retained earnings column, revaluation reserve column, general reserve column. Those I'm referring to. So we can answer our question now. So in our question, the same one, which is a continuation of, we had the following balances. That would be, this is the share capital. This would be my retained earnings, or I'll put that RE, revaluation reserve, RR, GR, general reserve, and total. So we start the balances now. The balance as at the same 31st December. We put in the totals from the trial balance. Share capital had 1870. I'll just remove the last 3 zeros. And then this other one had what? 5135. That's the retained earnings. Actually, we'll just put 5. It was 513,500. Now I'm just removing the last 3 zeros, so this one will be now 0.5. Then revaluation reserve had 350,000. I'll just put 350 as well. Remove the last 3 zeros. General reserve had 100,000. I'll just put 100 as well, just for the sake of debasing the zeros to fit into the column here. Then total, you can just sum up these. That's what goes in the total column as well. 2833,500. 2833.5, since we're dividing by 1,000, so we can remove those 3 zeros at the end. Yeah, that's what we'll put in the total of the summation of those. Then now dividends were there in that same question. How much were they? if you refer back again to that video, we had calculated dividends at 112,200. And where do the dividends go? Under retained earnings. So again, we're debasing. It was 112,200, but again, I've just removed the last 3 zeros so we can remain with that figure. Dividends are subtracted in retained earnings. Let's remember that. Impairment was there in our question. They talked about some impairment of 100,000 on goodwill from that same question again. So we have to put it where? Here. Retained earnings, impairment. Impairment is also a subtraction. It was 100,000, but again, I'm just removing the last 3 zeros. Revaluation surplus was initially there as well. Where did this one come from? I'll just try to drag you back to the same question. So this question, I've just dragged you back specifically to note 5 of that same video that it talked about. That take note that there was this asset that was sold for that figure, 440. It had a carrying amount of 290. And then the VIN showed us, okay, that was its gross total of 360 and accumulated of 70. So someone would say we can just subtract the 2 and get the carrying amount. But this is the thing. And that would be to find the carrying amount, and then you test for a profit or loss on disposal. Now, the thing is this. When we were here, in this case, why the 90 came about as the 90 came into the reserve as the one we looked at here, was the fact that this asset that they are selling was initially revalued at 90,000. As you can see, the 90,000 of revaluation surplus, okay, relating to the plant and equipment that was sold. So what you're going to do is this 90 here, this is the detail I even wanted. This 90, it was in there, the revaluation surplus. Now the rule is that when you sell an asset, you have to remove that figure that you initially put in the revaluation surplus. Hence, we're going to do the opposite and subtract. Otherwise, a revaluation surplus under normal circumstances should be added in the revaluation reserve. But when you sell, you have to remember that we are subtracting. Yeah, so the 90 here on revaluation surplus, we'll put it here under the column of RR, that's revaluation reserve, 90. Do we have anything like a transfer? Nothing. The question didn't have anything about a transfer to general reserve. We can also put in net profit for the year or loss. You can have a loss. It's very possible. So in our case, we had what? A loss in that question. Net loss. How much was it? 152. Then it was 951. Okay, 152, 937.5. That was the full total. Now, as usual, we are trying to reduce the figures. We're debasing them in shorter. So as we said, we're not debasing, we're just dividing each figure by 1,000 so that we can remove those 3 zeros at the end. So we are going to just basically reduce this to this, something like that. This will be your net loss. Okay, even it was supposed to be 0.5, so it would go for. That's the only thing when you debase the figures that you have more decimal places, unfortunately. But basically, that was your net loss, and it's a loss. Losses are subtracted in retained earnings as well. But if it was a profit, would have added. So this was the end actually on the things that will affect your statement of changes in equity from that question. Then you start summing up as well. These column totals. You sum up this column 1870. Sum up this column RE. What do you get? 1483. Okay, so this is the full total I'm giving you. I want to just try and the basis 1483.625. Yeah. The next one, remember this 90 from RR, I just forgot to put in brackets, since as I said, when you sell an asset, you end up reducing the surplus now. So 350 minus 90, 260. The next 100 minus nothing is just 100. Therefore, you take the summation of all these below. What do we get as the final total at the bottom here? 2378. 2378.362. 362. So I'll just rewrite that final figure again so that you can see it. Yeah, so but basically even in this column here, you had to find the total. It will just be like 112 If it was negative 112 as a subtraction, we inside you write as 112 as a subtraction. Same story. Yeah, then this one was like 100 in brackets, even decided to be 100 in brackets in the total column. The other side, the 90 was in brackets, also here to be 90 what in brackets as well. So just if it was a positive, it to come as a positive this side. Basically that's what's going on. So that's how your statement of changes in equity looks. So remember, net profit, net loss, never forget these things. What in short, what I've shown you is that if you are seeing this in an equation, just know they're coming in your statement of changes in equity. Yeah, so I'll just write the last total for you, which was 2378. As I said, I've just reduced this by debasing the figures. Sorry, yeah, so it's going to give you this. Otherwise, the actual total that you even see in the previous video was this. It's just that I was debasing, you know, when you debase the figure, I'll have to reverse reduce. Yeah, that was the total of what? I would call this figure total equity. That figure that is at the final corner there. That's your total equity. It should match what you have found under that section of the balance sheet which says equity. There's that section of the balance sheet which is equity, which we put in share capital, reserves, retained earnings. There's those summation of those things which make up equity. It should match with this total found, as you will see in the previous video, and you'll know that you have balanced your statement of changes in equity. Yeah, so basically it was just a continuation. So as I said, I would advise you rewatch that video, which is IAS 16, 1, 36, 38 and 40 in one video. That's the one which is continuing to this video.